Dr. Mo Tong Nam is reviewer number 1. Associate Professor Phương Hoàng Yến will be reviewer number 2. And Associate Professor Trần Hữu Phúc will be member of the committee. I'd like to introduce the Associate Professor Nguyễn Thị Mai Hương will be the secretary of our committee. Thank you very much. So, Ms. Taman, you can start with 10 minutes for your presentation.
Good morning, members of the committee and everyone in here. So, my name is Lê Khánh Vân, and today is my honor to be here and present my thesis. That is co-mixing between Vietnamese and English among young Vietnamese, an analysis of language use, social belonging, and underlying reasons. My presentation will follow the structure of my thesis. That is including 5 chapters from introduction, literature review, methodology, findings and discussion, and conclusion and recommendations. So, English in Vietnam has played an important role due to globalization, education policies, and economic growth. Therefore, as the increasingly importance of English in Vietnam, young Vietnamese tend to incorporate English into their daily speech. This phenomenon is known as co-mixing, which is a common and natural feature communication in urban and educated communities. However, recent study focused mainly on education and classroom environment, or some in the newspaper written text. Therefore, my research tends to explore the types, the social meanings, and the motivation among the use of co-mixing from the young Vietnamese. There are 3 aims of this research. The first one is to identify the most common types of co-mixing used by Vietnamese. The second one is examine how co-mixing reflects sense of social belonging. The third one is to explore the possible underlying reasons behind this linguistic behavior. So, in order to reach this aim, I come up with 3 research questions. The first one is, what are the most common types of co-mixing between Vietnamese and English among young Vietnamese? The second one is, how does co-mixing among young Vietnamese contribute to their expression of identity and their connection with social group? And the last one is, what can be the underlying reasons behind Vietnamese-English co-mixing among young Vietnamese? There are several theoretical frameworks that I follow. The first one is the type of co-mixing developed by
want to give your review, please?
Hi, Helen, thanks a lot for your presentation. Overall, I think this is a very interesting study. I spent quite a bit of time reading it, and I found quite interesting conclusions. And it's very practical too, because I'm researching to mix between two languages, so which is good and interesting. Right, a few comments that I have. It's a mix between comments and subject and question. So you just jump in to respond to any of it. After I finish my feedback, you just respond to any of it. Sometimes it's a comment, sometimes it's a question. Okay, so up to you. All right. So the comments that I have can be grouped into four areas. Okay. So the first one is about the disintegration between the local and international literature. The disconnection. If you read your introduction, the rationale, whatever, you see that you focus mostly on the local literature or studies that are done in Vietnam. Okay, there's no sign of the international research. But this topic, so I'm wondering what have previous scholars in other countries, have found about this particular phenomenon called mixing. Okay, so same thing is for your discussion. The finding discussion, also limited to the Vietnamese context, with few severe lack of international literature. Okay, and the problems with lacking international research is that it makes it difficult to certain the contribution of your study to the international research literature. I think I see a lot of potential in your study, but it's very important to make it clear that when we do research, we don't limit the scope within Vietnam and we say we don't care about studying in another country. That's not the way we do research. Okay, so maybe you can explain, maybe you can come back and then revise it. That's the first one, the value disconnection with international literature. The second one is the term use. I use quite a lot of terms, and which make me wonder if you really understand the definition of each term that you want to provide. For example, when you say a Vietnamese English bilingual, what does it mean? What do you mean by a Vietnamese English bilingual? Do you mean that anyone who speaks English can be considered bilingual? That's maybe true in some cases, but you better define it, because when I read bilingual, it has a different meaning to me. It's not just you learn English as a foreign language, and then you can just say, I am truly Vietnamese English bilingual, So you want to make sure that you use the term very carefully, or you want to define it, okay? The same thing for any other concept. You use quite a lot of concepts. Identity, right? Belonging, motivation, okay? Social, the question is, if I have to ask you what is identity, you have to be aware that identity is itself an area of research, okay? And then belonging, what is belonging? Belonging itself is an area of research. Okay, so I didn't find many areas when you define what you mean by identity, what you mean by belonging, and even motivation. Motivation is a scientific concept. Okay, so be careful about the use the terms. You don't have to use a variety of terms, but you want to make sure that you use certain terms and define it. Okay, so that's for a term use. When I go back, then I check whether you want to add some sort of working definition for what you mean by bilingual in the context of the study. Okay, and whether you want to provide a definition for identity, belonging, like that. That's the second area. The third area is it's by references. It's very old. It's like 1989, 1998, something like that, like 30 years ago. And I'm wondering whether it's relevant to today, evolving, world. So you want to update your references, you know, and avoid using like 30, 40 years ago. You know, there's no point doing that. We can search for more data. And the last one is about, I think it's a comment, it's not a question, it's a comment. I think it's important that you provide more detail. It's about more detailed and transparencies on your data collection and analysis. For example, you said you collect the utterances from your participants, okay? You said the researcher collected 102 utterances from spontaneous conversation with participants. But I don't understand how you collected utterances from spontaneous. Like, you need to provide more details. The steps you took, okay? When do you decide to select what utterances and when is it not? You know, it must be transparent. It must be systemic. It's not that when I like it, I collect, when I don't like it, I don't. You know, it must be transparent. It must be systemic in the way you collect utterances. So people know that what you are doing is representative, not just subjective. So these are the four key comments. I think if you address these, it will definitely enhance your quality visit. But overall, I think this is a really interesting and well executed study.
Thank you, Dr. Roland, for your comments. Very positive and helpful for Cẩm. And I'd like to invite our Associate Professor Phương Hoàng Yến.
Okay, I would like to congratulate you on fulfilling your graduation project. It's very interesting actually. When I read the mixing, codes mixing, and it's very common among the young people nowadays, especially on social media. So I'm going to begin with a question. What distinguishes insertional and alternational codes missing in your data? Which is more frequent and why?
Thank you, Associate Professor, for your question. So now I will answer the question that you have just given me. So the first one, in my data set, the insertional code missing is by far the dominant in the data. So in 102 utterances that I have collected through the natural conversation, there are like 96 of code missing, that is insertional, and there are only 6 of the alternational code missing. So the boundaries that to divide into the insertional code missing and alternational code missing that I have done is the linguistic boundaries. So which means the level of whether it is the word, the phrase. If it is the word or the phrase, it will be considered as insertional code mixing. While if it is the clause or the full sentence, I will categorize it into the alternation. So that's the answer for my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to read my comment. So your topic addresses a highly relevant and contemporary linguistic phenomenon, providing both theoretical and practical contribution. Theoretically, it sustains existing knowledge in social linguistics, especially code mixing, typology, and identifying construction among bilingual in Vietnam. Practically, it's offer indication for language educator and policy maker by shedding light on real-life bilingual language use among youth. However, I agree with Dr. Ngô Công Lan that you need to give the definition for bilingual in this context, right? Regarding the methodology, the study employed a mixed method design combining survey, informal conversation, and interview, which enhances the richness and triangulation of data. The selection of Mike framework and Maastricht language frame and Martinez model is theoretically methodologically sound. The two were clearly developed and ethically administered. Regarding the findings, The finding revealed that institutional missing dominant and linked to social identity, group alignment, and communicative efficiency. The results are insightful and reflect current linguistic behavior among the youth. The pedagogical indication for English language teaching and bilingual education are clearly presented. The thesis is well structured with a logical progression from introduction to conclusion. Chapters are clearly presented and supported with table, figure, and appendices. The writing style is clear and accessible, making complex social-linguistic theory understandable. However, below are some points that the student researcher can do to make the graduation project better. First, each chapter should begin with sharp summary to signal the readers what to expect. Second, part 1.6, limitation of the study, should be moved to the conclusion chapter. Usually we say the limitation by the end of the thesis rather than at the beginning, right? And chapter 3, I wonder how you came up with the item in your survey, right? You may want to elaborate more in chapter 3, methodology. It will make the thesis more understandable and comprehensible to the reader. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Zhou Wangying, for your comments and questions, and other members of our committee. You have any questions or comments?
Yes, just one question. So first of all, congratulations on the accomplishment of your thesis. I read it with interest. But I have a question for you. Some people say that code mixing in the English classroom might make the student lazy and it can reduce English proficiency. So how would you respond to that critique? Okay, should I say it again? Now some people say that using code mixes in the English classroom might make the students lazy and it might reduce English proficiency. How would you respond to that critique? What do you think about that? So thank you for your question. So the first time when I come up with this idea that I would do this research, I was once joined a class that used the code mixing strategy in university. So rather call it as the lazy for student and increasing of English proficiency, I would tell that applying the code mixing into classroom may be the way so that the student can learn the new words and know the meanings and the way to express it in the daily communication rather than lazy or the proficiency. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Associate Professor Emmanuel, for your comments and suggestions for learning. So I'd like to congratulate you on finishing this session, and I'd like to invite you to wait outside for several minutes for the committee to come to a decision.